Good morning. I'm making my coffee, having some breakfast. So, after a purely disastrous relationship history in high school, and then the pregnancy and all that, it gets kind of blurry for me. After that, I know I got married, but it was happenstance. It was kind of like I went on a blind date with my then BFF and her date, who the guy married was his cousin. Okay. I met him. I was at my mom's and I wanted to move out, and he was at his auntie's or wherever, and he wanted to move out. So we decided we would get a place together. And then his cousin, the guy from the blind date, he wanted to get a place. And then my brother wanted to get a place. And then my husband's brother wanted to get a place. So we all got a place together, this huge apartment. And it was fine. Everybody was working except for my husband, but it lasted about a year, I think. And then first his cousin moved out and got married. Then my brother moved out and got married. And then his brother moved in with his girlfriend. And then I left. Okay, a couple of background stories here. My husband was a drug addict. He shot dope, which I also didn't know anything about, and he justified it to me because I smoked, which we know is a drug. He's like, well, you do that drug and I do this drug. Okay, fine. And I can't really say I was affected by it in the beginning because there were so many of us, and he was pretty cool about it. It wasn't necessarily interfering with what was going on in our house. But later on, when money got tighter after everybody moved out, and I was, of course, responsible for the house, he would give me money. But then it started to be where, as the month went on, he would start begging for the money back. And I'm like, no, that's for the gas bill, that's for this. And he would get very angry and throw things. He never hit me, but when he couldn't get his drugs, he would get very angry and very mean and very nasty. And I just kind of got tired of it. So, and it was a real cloak and dagger kind of escape, because I couldn't work, because he wouldn't let me work. He was very possessive and very controlling. But you got to remember, during that time, I was in my Betty Crocker glory, and I'd loved, having a real place of my own, and I'm cooking and cleaning. The situation, I was happy in the situation of it, but I wasn't personally being fulfilled. But I didn't know that. So the way I left him was that my mother had moved to Ohio, which is what prompted me to get married, because she was leaving town, and she, I can't leave you here alone. You need to get married. Those were the instructions. You need to get married. So the person who I was with at the time that she said that, okay, I'll marry you. And that's pretty much what the decision was based on. So I tried it for a year. Didn't want to tell anybody what was really going on. But I called my mom in Ohio and I said, look, I can't do this anymore. And she was like, okay, fine. If you don't like something, you need to go. And she told me how to pack up my stuff. She called the moving company for me. She got me hotel reservations to wait for her to come up from Ohio to get me. And my husband came home to an empty house and a cat. I left the cat. But in my mind, well, he should have known that was going to happen. But, when somebody's on drugs, and he really got bad near the end, like really ugly, and kind of violent. Like I said, he never hit me, but he was starting to tear stuff up in the house because he'd get really mad and he'd start throwing things. He wasn't taking anything out to sell. I don't know, maybe he did. But with that, I moved out of state. I moved to Ohio. And that was how that ended. At that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe the relationship thing isn't really for me, but lo and behold, not long after I moved there, I did meet another guy in the parking lot of Wendy's, if I'm not mistaken. Cute. Really cute. I've had a couple of really cute ones, I ain't gonna lie. But his problem was that he was a nice guy, but he wanted to be a bad boy. So his plan was for us to set some men up in hotel rooms where we would rob them. That was his idea. So it never happened because I was just telling him, look, you're freaking crazy. So then he wanted us to get a townhouse together so we could save on rent. So I said, cool. He goes, we're going to combine our paychecks, which is what I did. I took my paycheck and deposited into his account because we're supposed to be joining finances. And next thing I know, I can't even get him on the phone. So he took my money and went on a road trip with his best friend. So when he got back, I was like, well, you need to pay my rent now because you spent the money. And I was lucky in that situation where he did step up and pay my rent. But a lot of times when you give people your money like that, you don't come out that easily. So around this time, my mother was moving back home. And she's like, oh, you'll be fine. You have a really nice guy now. You'll be okay. You know, I'm like, Mom, you don't really know what this guy's about. Fine, go home and leave me. And I never did any of the things that he wanted me to do. But I was lucky that I was able to resist him. I still had my own place. I had a job. I had my money. And I wasn't dependent upon his idea of what I should be doing. And, yeah, it was an interesting encounter for me because that was the first time I ever had anybody like suggesting that I do all these things like, but I was lucky. Like I said, I got through it. I didn't do what he wanted me to do. And I stayed in Ohio like several years, but besides my want to be a gangster friend, that was pretty much it. Relationship wise, I don't think I was as adamant about being with somebody as much anymore since I've been through several changes with several people. So sometimes that's just where you end up.